Hey, deserving listeners, Love is Blind, Season 6, the reunion. Let's check it out.
I didn't have the reaction you wanted there, and I couldn't give it to you. It would have been manipulative for me to tell you I love you or something if I didn't feel it. I read it because you gave it to me. Maybe I shouldn't have read it. I think we both can agree to that. But I wasn't
looking for...
He really is leaning into that. And I'm surprised because I assume he's seen that scene from the outside and was given a chance to see her body language. So that's strange that he's leaning into that. It's really weird, actually.
For you to tell me that you loved me, and it's even shown that I say that. I said, just give me something.
Okay. Well, you were on the girl's side saying you love me. You never voiced that to me. So there was two sides to not voicing our opinions. You never once told me you love me. I don't know why I have to go first.
What is he talking about? If I were Jess, I'd be like, well, apparently we have different memories. Because he's gone off into the stratosphere. Talking about, well, on the girl side, you said you loved me. You never said you loved me. Why should I have to go first? What the hell are you talking about? That's not even what she's talking about. I noticed in the very beginning. Now, I had the benefit of seeing her nonverbals. He's had the chance to see it. Maybe he didn't watch it. I don't know.
I wanted you to say it first. I felt like I had given you so much and shared the most...
Oh, I see what he's saying. I forgot about that. Yeah. He wanted her to be more vulnerable, but she was pretty darn vulnerable, right? I mean, that's kind of bullshit. It's like, because you and Chelsea are fighting for me, you should be the ones initiating, and then I would, like, that doesn't make any sense. If anything, he should be the first one to say it, and they should be able to wait, because it's pretty obvious what's happening, right? And they should be given that grace given the scenario they're in, you know? Yeah, plus it was, regardless of the word love being mentioned, it doesn't matter. It was clear she was wanting him to ask her to marry him.
Intimate details of myself, my daughter, my past, and the things that I shared with you I've never shared in any relationship I've ever been in.
Right.
I felt like the least you could have done was just meet me with, even if it wasn't an I love you, just your feelings, period.
Yeah, well said. That's the way it looked to me, and I'm glad she's confirming it. She didn't say that directly until now, but that's exactly the way it looked like to me. Just something to grab onto. I gave you the letter, like, wow, I really appreciate this. This makes me have very warm feelings for you. Thank you. And wow, I feel close to you, something. Instead of just silence.
Were you looking for her to say, I love you? Were you waiting on that? Was that something that would have been meaningful to you?
No, and I'm kind of backtracking and going to her leaving the date early. That did happen.
An hour and a half into it, not 10 minutes.
I'd maybe give you 45 minutes, but it felt like 10 minutes.
Okay, that's fine. He could say, yeah, I don't really remember, but I guess it felt, I guess I'm wrong. It felt like 10 minutes. I wasn't intentionally lying about that. Plus, it doesn't really change the story at all, really. I mean, I guess kind of. It just makes her look like this. But to the edit, it was 10 minutes, maybe fewer minutes. And I totally understand why she left. Because as she was minorly escalating, he started getting like, hey, get off my back kind of defensiveness. And then that would make her escalate, a little bit more. I mean, she didn't go boom. She was like, hey. I mean, like at first she's like, hey, and then, hey, and then, hey, and then, hey, and then he kept getting more defensive. And I'm just like, dude, just reassure her. It's obvious. It's what she wants. Even if it's not like explicit, like read the room. And then eventually she just got to the point where she's like, according to her, she wanted a break because I think she was worried that things would, or she wanted to reset, it sounds like. And then he said, I think it's over. And so for Jessica, she would have a big beef with his story because the way he's framing it is that she was this manipulative, forceful jerkface and stormed out.
To me,
your perception, like you said, was 10 minutes. You're like, I'll give you 45. you went in an interview and said that that's actually how it happened.
Right, but it's possible that until now he did remember 10 minutes. And now he's like, oh, well, maybe it wasn't. And hopefully Jimmy says that.
Not, this is how I felt, but yeah, this is actually how it happened. And then you said, I'm really proud of the edit that she had. As if every last thing I did wasn't real. It wasn't an edit.
I don't understand the landscape. So she's saying that he said that she's proud of the edit? Wait, let's rewind.
Yeah, this is actually how it happened. And then you said, I'm really proud of the edit that she had.
I'm really proud of the edit she had. I thought I'd understand what she meant or what she thinks he meant by that through context, but then later, after this bit, she's saying that it was hard. I don't know what is happening. Oh, let me imagine that Jimmy might have been saying, I'm really proud of the edit. I believe Jessica's account here, so that Jimmy's saying, I'm really proud, meaning that it makes her look okay. She wasn't edited poorly. And then she's insulted because it's like, look, the edit is not a deception. It doesn't, that is the story. I think that's what she's saying.
Every last thing I did wasn't real. It wasn't an edit. It wasn't. No one did me any favors. And I've been the first to say, when I had that wine night with Laura, that wasn't my best moment.
Yeah. I mean, it's possible that there's something we wouldn't know, but Jimmy would. But given his unreliable aspects of narrating, we wouldn't be able to trust him. But it is possible that Jimmy and others have concluded that, they kind of left out a lot of stuff that Jess did. And given what I think is the motivation of the editors, I can imagine them wanting to do that because they want to amp up, I don't know, but you could imagine that they want to continue the love triangle story and they want the audience to root for her or something. So there's that. Or Jimmy is like the edit, but I'm proud of her edit. I don't understand that wording. But he thinks they didn't show how much pressuring she was. And it is possible, but I don't think so. And then, I'm either way, I'm appreciative of Jess's, the way she's talking about this, and they're letting him work it out. They're not interrupting. No one is. That's good. And I like this because a lot of times when there are interviews and stuff, I think what's happening sometimes is cast members, in a way to defend themselves, will just take a shortcut and say, like, you don't understand the edit. Like Zenib was saying that. Zenib was saying, you don't understand. Cole got a good edit. And maybe he did, but not as distorted as she distortedly believed, because she was saying there are events that if you saw, you would be like, whoa, Cole is a horrible human being. I mean, that wasn't exact words, but that was what she was saying. And then Zenib said, like the cuties, that was one of her top stories that she wished was aired. We watched that scene. I don't know many people that watched that and said Cole was a jerk face. Oblivious, childish, but not the way she was painting it was nefarious abuse, really. And it did not look that way. I have sympathy for Zenib's emotions and what she went through. Those aren't made up. Those are real. So I am skeptical when people make those allegations about, they got a good edit and da-da-da. Is it true? Could it happen? Yeah. But a lot of times, even if it is a good edit, there's enough factual information in there to say, okay, fine, but you still did that thing or whatever. And then I also am not a fan of the fans saying the same thing, right? That, it's a completely different thing because I heard someone say da-da-da. And maybe, we can, for sure, we need to be skeptical of the edit. I always am. But this sort of blanket disregard for, it's almost like a conspiracy theory. It's like, Kubrick faked the moon landing because I just know it. I just discount the whole thing, It kind of has that feel to it. And so I think that's what she's accusing Jimmy of doing, which I don't doubt. I would have doubted before, but watching this interaction, I'm more believing that he has some issues. Doesn't have as much integrity and goodwill that I thought he did. So it's a little disappointing to hear this exchange. But I'm glad that Jess is approaching it this way, because a lot of people on the show, when they will confront, it's a lot more barky and yelly and accusatory. Think the way Sarah talks to people. Instead, Jess is saying, that's not what happened, and that hurts. She's exhibiting that.
Every date we had was phenomenal and everything I would have ever wanted. I'm saying I gave you 45 minutes. I still believe it was 10 minutes.
Someone please get the receipts.
Hello?
Oh, okay. So they're just going to show it to us. Look at those pillows again. Interesting. It's almost exactly what she said. She said an hour and a half. Yeah, I'd call an hour and 23 minutes, especially the commute to the pods. It's an hour and a half. She's a pretty good keeper of time. Now, of course, we're taking their word for it, but I'm going to trust that this is accurate, because I was like, oh crap, even if it's 10 minutes, it's like, do we have to sit through the entire, that's why they edit things down. Now, he could still remember it as 10 minutes. Our memories are not good. And when emotions are involved, emotions are not good, especially when you start telling stories and you have a reason to truncate it. He might actually 100% believe it was 10 minutes. So the thing is, if they're all watching this right now, is if he's like, wow, it felt like 10 minutes. I guess I was wrong.
Quick break.
Please, that would be great.
Okay.
So then he says, I want to take, because that's not what she said. She said, I want an intermission. He just said, I want to take a quick break. Okay. I mean, it doesn't really matter. This isn't really like the Cuties tape, because it's two people that are remembering the breakup from their perspective and through their emotions. She's more accurate, but I don't think it's like the Cuties thing. I think it's, and he, while she was telling all this to him, he wasn't really fighting back. He wasn't like, no. He was, I think, at least silently, through his silence, conceding to at least some of the things she was saying. So I don't know if it really matters. Okay, so I said 8 minutes later. They took an 8-minute break. He was the one that asked for the break. I'm trying to figure out where this happened in the conversation. Were they having a tense conversation? It didn't look like that. But why would you take a break? Unless it was, I don't know.
You in here, Jess?
I'm here.
Wow, it's a lot longer. It's we're now at like 2 hours, 15 minutes, or 2.5 hours almost.
I'm not giving up. I'm not walking away or like going to bed angry, but it's feeling forced, and that's just not us.
Yeah.
So I think we should leave it alone for right now.
I'm good with that.
Okay, so definitely his story's wrong, and his memory could be bad. Her story is also factually inaccurate, given that she didn't ask for the intermission, he asked for a break, and then this tone is different.
I'm not giving up. I'm not walking away or like.
Okay, so I'm watching the scene earlier in the season, and this is that exact moment. I just landed on it.
Going to bed angry, but it's feeling forced, and that's just not us.
Yeah.
So I think we should leave it alone for right now.
I'm good with that.
I want you to.
Yes, this certainly isn't storming out.
Find the clarity and peace that you need to figure out who you want to spend the rest of your life with. I feel like continuing to talk about it is.
This is weird because when he said storming out, or when she said he said storming out, I think I haven't said this on camera, I was like, well, it could be interpreted as storming out, but no. So I guess I had, for whatever reason, rewritten that story. Or I didn't have a story, and then hearing that, I just invented that. That'll happen. You can have zero memory about something. But psychologists in the lab will do these experiments where they'll show you an accident on a video. Because this is important because eyewitness accounts are often used in courts, right? Some of the preeminent researchers are actually at University of Washington. My alma mater. So if you're playing a bingo, then maybe that's part of the bingo game is me mentioning University of Washington, my alma mater. Anyway, for this experiment, I don't know if I have the exact method right, but it's something along these lines. They'll show the scene, and then at some point later, sometimes it's like 5 minutes later, and sometimes it'll be a day later or whatever. And they ask people what they remember, and there's various different permutations of the experiment. One is where you prime them with something where, like, let's say the car was red that crashed, and the researcher the next day will say, was it a blue car? They'll ask that, was it a blue car? And it'll cause more people to remember a blue car. And I mean, I don't know if this is exactly right, but there's a lot of stuff like this. And people will be very sure of themselves. It's one thing to say, like, to be influenced by that and say, like, well, I think it was a blue car. And then they always ask, how confident are you in that memory? And it'd be rational to say, I think it's a blue car, but I don't know. And that does happen with some people, but way more often than you would hope. People are like, I'm 100% sure it's a blue car. Yeah, I can see it in my mind right now. Because just prior to the word blue, they either had a red car or no car at all. And it's possible they had changed it just on their own into blue, but given that you have control groups and everything, you can demonstrate that when you say that word, you're going to get a lot more people remembering blue car. So it's possible that in that, it's a psychology YouTube channel, indulge me on my random psychology thing here, that she was saying that Jimmy said that it was storming out, and I might have had no memory in that moment, but then she says that, and when we're told something, we tend to visualize it. And so when we visualize it, we actually will encode that as a memory. Our brains have a hard time determining what's a real memory versus an imagined memory. And so I do have a memory of her storming out, but it could literally have only been created as a memory when he said that she was storming out. And thus I say 2 seconds later or 15 seconds later, I'm like, well, it wasn't exactly storming out, but one could say that. It's bizarre, right? What was I remembering? Or did some other thing happen that caused, because, I was definitely not seeing her as aggressive or hostile or naggy. When I saw this scene originally, I remember, and God knows it's my memory, but I mean, I guess I could watch the bit, but I don't want to be that boring. But I remember anyway thinking that her entire presentation was fair. If anyone was dropping the ball, it was Jimmy. I understand why, I think, but so why would me, given my perspective, think that she was storming out? It's weird, right? This is why, when the Mandela effect, people are like freaking out. It could literally be this half the time. There's a Fruit of the Loom Mandela thing where people remember like a cornucopia with fruit on the logo. And so if you ask people, do you remember a cornucopia with, I think it's called cornucopia, with fruit spilling out of it as part of the logo on the Fruit of the Loom brand? Well, they have now pictured that in their heads, and it's now become a memory. It's one way to look at it, or at least they can visualize it in their head. And because we don't have like photographic memories, at least most of us, we don't have any memory of, or at least we don't have a dominant one that will outshine the one that you just created by suggesting that. And therefore I'm going to be like, yeah, of course I do. And then, Mandela effect.
It's making me feel like I'm having to talk you into it.
Because what's the alternative? That we live in a simulation that is so sharp and amazing and competent and effective as to trick us so well, but they have glitches in the Matrix because you've seen the movie The Matrix where there's glitches. Like you have a computer that is God knows of what capacity and ability, and it screws up Fruit of the Loom and Berenstain Bears. It's a similar problem when people think that UFOs are crashing on our planet. So we're led to believe that an alien race has such advanced technology that they get to traverse the stars, which a lot of theorists are saying might not ever be possible, but okay, they arrive here and then they just crash into the Earth on accident. Or accidentally show themselves. You know what I'm saying?
And I don't want that.
Well, thank you for wrapping that up, because I can't form a sentence to figure out how to tell you how I feel.
And that kind of sums up the whole thing. We don't have to watch it, but yeah, he's just silent and not doing anything to help her, basically.
Yeah, and I'm gonna tell you, like, if I even want it anymore by the time you decide what you want to do, that is something I will need.
It feels like
Right. So because I think of his guilt complex, he encodes all this experience as pressure. It's not pressure. Jess is a very honest person and authentic and healthy. It's like, hey, this was pretty awkward and I'm pretty hurt. And I don't even know if I want to do this anymore. But if we do this thing, that's going to have to change. This that's happening right now where you're shutting down, I want that to change. I think that was very rational, and they might have, you think about like the opportunity missed. If he had committed to her, I think she would have been effective at being balanced. She's really shown that throughout the season, to be assertive and making requests. And she clearly had a lot of chemistry and desire with him, a lot of energy around it, which could have carried the day. And before this date, he had a lot of energy towards her. It's a missed opportunity. And it's bizarre to think about that because they're yelling at each other at the reunion. But that's how these things are. It's over now because they have a lot of bad blood between the two of them. But, like when you hear about a divorce and you're talking to your friend and who goes through a divorce and your friend's just like, oh, let me tell you about my ex, this and this. And maybe it's all true, but it's possible that it was just a misunderstanding that spun out of control, and then memories get reworked and you break up. You don't have any reason to give grace to the other person, and you don't have any sort of checks and balances to keep you in check, and your narrative runs away with itself. And then as a friend, you're hearing this very distorted picture when it's completely inaccurate, Now, I will say Jessica is way closer to the mark than his story was.
You are never gonna put me in this position again.
Trust me, I wish I had a decision at this point.
So, yeah, this is just more of the tail end of this.
I don't have anything else to say. I really don't.
And I get his interpretation. I don't think everyone would interpret it that way, but I can see someone who has trouble with this kind of assertive communication, that it feels like pressure. It feels like hostility for not saying I love you and not committing to her. It isn't that. But given that he doesn't know how he's coming across, I could see someone concluding that. I can't see him watching this and concluding that, but I don't know.
And maybe I will talk to you later.
Okay, then she walks out, and my memory is he doesn't say anything. Like, hey, let me just stop you. I want to, he just now non-verbally, you can see he's struggling, but she doesn't know that. All she gets is nothing, which could feel very hurtful, very callous. Right. So we're watching the original scene, episode 4. That's not storming out.
And maybe I will talk to you later.
So yeah, they are playing the same sequence at the reunion, and they're telling us it's 2 hours and 13 minutes. If I were Jessica, I could imagine thinking he knows it wasn't 10 minutes. He knows I didn't storm out, and he lied. He said it was 10 minutes. He said I pressured him, and he said I stormed out. All of that isn't true. It's possible that he remembers it that way and interpreted it that way, and he will say now, because I think they're all watching it, that he's like, oh, I guess I was wrong. Or I could also see him saying, okay, I was wrong about the 10 minutes thing, but you were wrong about the intermission thing. I actually wanted a break. And yeah, right, because Jessica was saying you wanted an intermission. I wanted an intermission. That's what she said. And then you said it's over. But that's not even what happened. He wanted a break. They came back from the break. She was the one that was saying, I don't really see any point in continuing with this date because there was just a total lack of communication, and it probably was very boring. And so she was the one who suggested let's end, and then he agreed with it, basically. So both of their memories are inaccurate, which makes sense. But her story is closer. But her story is distorted because she, a pretty big point is that she's saying, no. I was just innocently asking for an intermission, and you rejected that. You said it's over. But it was mutual. It was mutual. She was like, I think I should go. He's like, yeah, I guess, yeah.
Speaking of...
And I will say that's a fascinating Rashomon memory example. You heard their accounts. We saw what happened. Both of them were wrong, essentially filtered through their emotions. For her, it felt, and it was, at least, but it felt like a rejection. Like he was being callous and hurtful and saying, I don't want to be with you. But that isn't really what happened, right? I think he just shut down. And maybe through those 2 hours and 20 minutes, he was pulling away because he didn't like the way that she was coming across, which I think is weird, but each to their own. But she felt rejected, so she reworked the story to, I wanted an intermission and you said no. And you ended it. At least that's my memory of what she said. God knows if that's what, but it was something along those lines, right? And then his memory is, you were being mean and pressuring and you didn't give me a chance, and then you just stormed out. So each of them, just like Rashomon, just like the research shows, is filtering everything through an emotional lens. I talked a lot about that with Chelsea, and I remember saying, or at least I think, that all of us do this. We all filter our experiences through emotions. We also filter our memories through our emotions when we recall them, and then they get filtered back through our emotions when we encode memories of memories. And for people that have particular relational traumas that can get triggered, one, they have bigger emotions, so more opportunities to distort perceptions, but also they will, upon remembering, distort even further. So we're seeing an example of that. The distortion that they have, Jessica and Jimmy, is more in the normal range. The distortion that Chelsea exhibited was outside that norm, but the same mechanism.
The media and social media, something that has taken over this show. Hey, Chelsea. The debate about...
It sounds like they didn't show it to them, which makes sense because they hadn't known that they were going to fight about it, I think. So we didn't get a chance to see. Maybe they'll give an interview. I don't know. I guess I was just hoping that particularly Jimmy would go, oh, yeah, I guess I do have that wrong. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have said that. And Jess can say, oh, I guess I was a little wrong too, but he was more wrong. But I guess I was a little wrong. But I wasn't blabbing about it in an interview. But yeah, I did remember it wrong. All right, well, that does it for that episode of Psychology in Seattle. Everyone out there, please take care of yourself, truly, because you deserve it. You really do.